Hi guys, this is Jake here at Canadian Cutting Edge, and today is the Sunday review. I like to do knives that I consider a little bit more special on Sundays, and today we have a knife from a company out of Canada. The knife is manufactured in China, but Ruike Knives, you saw in the thumbnail, it's spelled R-U-I-K-E, but pronounced Rake, rhymes with Jake, must be good. This is the P108-SF, also just known by most people as the P108. It is a gentleman's tactical. That's my name for the category of it, because it's a nice, well-finished, actually I should call it a budget gentleman's tactical. It's made very well, it looks really nice, but it's that thin kind of tactical flipper look. And it's got bearings. Less than 60 Canadian pesos. Not bad, eh? And you can buy it several places in Canada, and you can even get it if you're in the US or worldwide. Flips really well. I think you're going to want to stick around for this review, so stay in your chair. Ruike sent me this knife a few weeks ago, and I've been able to play with it and enjoy it and test it out and see how much I like it. And unfortunately, I forgot to do the cut test before I recorded the rest of this video. So I'm going to have to do the cut test with the steel the way it is, but that actually is not that bad of a thing because this knife is still very, very sharp. And why don't we just open the video up with that kind of stuff? Let's start off with this. Yeah, I've recorded this video a couple of times and I just couldn't get the focus right, so I have to do it again. We've got a receipt here, and look at this. This thing cuts receipt paper very, very easily. No problem at all. And that's after I've had this thing for a while. I've not stropped it, honed it, or anything. It just is a nice cutting edge straight from the factory. 20-pound copy paper. Same thing. It just cuts like nobody's business. Heavier paper, like on a cereal box, no problem at all. It just is a very good grind, nice flat grind. I'm calling this a full flat grind, even if you guys don't like me for doing that. It's not a saber grind. The grind is good. The final grind is good. Nice thin edge. It just works. Here's some of that 1-inch banding that I sometimes cut from show in my cut tests, and it just slides through this stuff. No problem at all. No matter how I want to cut this, it just works. We've got some paracord here, and I'll show you. It just wants to zip through paracord. It wants to zip through anything it touches. An extraordinarily sharp knife for what I'm calling a budget knife. It's not the uber budget knife because this thing comes in at about $60. It's actually $57 at Ruike Knives. A little bit cheaper at Warriors and Wonders, about $4 cheaper. At Amazon.com in the United States, you're going to pay $39.95 for this US. This is a budget knife, and yet it is awesome. Now, you might think I sound like a fanboy, so yeah, maybe I do a little bit. And I need to admit, Ruike did send this knife to me to review, so I'm being transparent. I try my absolute best to be objective, because if I'm not objective, then my channel is totally useless. So it's really important to me. So I've evaluated this thing based on its own merits, and I've done my very best to, just demonstrate what this knife is about and not let my thankfulness that they sent it to me interfere very much. We're looking at an all steel construction knife. Well, I take that back. This back spacer that's in black, that's some kind of aluminum or whatever it is. It's non-magnetic. Everything else is stainless steel. We've got a stainless steel body made out of 3CR14N. And the blade's made by Sandvik, and you can see right there, it's 14C28N. And I believe that number across the top here is a serial number. So we've got a knife that's made well, uses good materials, and it still only costs, in the low 50s. Meaning, yeah, it is a budget knife. Let's talk about the dimensions before we get too far ahead of ourselves with anything else. We've got a cutting edge. We've got a sharpener's choil right here, so we measure from this point forward to get the cutting edge, and the cutting edge is 8.9 centimeters, which is 3.5 inches. The thickness of the blade is 3.2 millimeters, which is 0.13 inches. The thickness of the steel behind the grind is just under 0.5 millimeter, is 0.47 millimeters, which is 0.018 inches. That's EDC perfect. An EDC knife, all-purpose kind of grind, you've got right around 0.5 millimeter, and this guy just slices. I already demonstrated that to you. It works very, very well on this full flat grind. The handle length is 12 centimeters, which is 4.7 inches. The thickness of the handle is 1.1 centimeters, which is 0.45 inches. I didn't count the pocket clip. The pocket clip makes it over 1/2 inch. The total length of this knife, when the blade is deployed, is 21 centimeters, which is 8.25 inches. And we got a knife, although it's all steel construction and the frame here is quite thick, it still only weighs 130 grams, which is 4.6 ounces. Great EDC weight. I don't like my knives too light. Actually, I like heavy knives. This guy is a very good weight for its size and dimension and everything. It fits in my hand very well. My hands are large, bordering on extra large, and it feels really good. Somebody with smaller hands is going to love this just the same because it's small. There's lots of room. What are some of the unique features of this knife? Well, for a low-price knife, it's got ball bearings. It's got this locking system right here. They're calling this their Beta Plus lock. When you slide it forward, and you can hear that click, it stops the frame lock from being pushed loose so that you can close the blade. So it's a safety thing. When you're using that, the blade will not close on you. It's got a nice little detent on it. You heard the click for it. And it requires a little bit of pushing. You have to consciously want to move this slider for it to work. So that's a good thing. If you don't want to use this lock, it's not going to engage accidentally. And if you do want to use it, when you are using it, it won't accidentally unlock on you. Unlike a lot of the other locks that are made to fulfill the same purpose, especially the ones that have this little lever over here, I really don't like that much because I inadvertently open and close that thing all the time, and I don't know if the blade's locked or unlocked or whatever, and I have to go and double check. This thing, you always know where this is because it was where you last left it on purpose. Really, really good. Pocket clip, really good deep carry pocket clip. You've got about 1 centimeter of knife handle sticking out of your pocket. So here's my pocket demonstrator. And this knife just slides in and out of the pocket very easily, very comfortably. I had one of my viewers write me and tell me that they didn't like this pocket clip, but if you watch this, it just slides in there very easily, goes to the full depth without any extra effort. You just slide it in and it just goes in there and it looks fine. You got a little bit of the knife showing. I really like it. And it holds just the right amount that I like. And it looks good when it's in the pocket. And I like that they chose to make this end black, kind of hides it and it just sort of sits in there. I think this knife, with a pocket clip the way it is, it's a very subtle way of saying I'm a better than average knife. And it is. This is a nice knife. At a lower than average price, it's a high-end knife in a low price market. And it looks really, really good. I like the things like these screws here are flush. They're slightly raised, but they're basically, flush screws. On this side as well. I wish they would have done that on the pocket clip screws here as well, but it's still pretty good. And there's only one thing that's slightly negative about this knife. And that has to do with its design being so thin. Sometimes when I pick up this knife and I go to deploy the blade, I'm holding it something like this and end up squeezing too much with these two fingers on that frame arm. And so I'm pushing the arm into the blade, and then it's hard to deploy the blade. It makes it have like the equivalent of an overly tight detent. A lockup that is snug and tight and there's no problem with. The lockup is a little bit later than I like a brand new knife to be, but there's enough room for wear and a good long life of this knife. Now, I like a brand new knife to be somewhere about there with that lock arm when it's brand new, but it's just, a millimeter further in than I like. Not a big deal, but that's the second very, very minor negative with this knife. The positive at this price point far outweigh these negatives. No problem at all. I highly recommend this knife. In fact, I'm going to be buying one of these for a friend of mine. I think he's going to really like it. I don't buy knives for people that often, and when I do, it has to be something special, and I like this knife. Some of you might be wondering, Ruike, brand new company, I don't know about Ruike. What's their warranty like? What's the, do they do well with treating their customers after the sale? I can tell you this. I don't know. I've got no support request in. I've not needed them, but I can tell you what their warranty is. I remind you, we're talking about a less than $60 Canadian knife. We're talking about a $40 US knife. Not many companies that have this as their average price or close to their average price are that generous with their warranties. By far and away, almost all of them, basically you've got a year, and after that year, good luck, you're on your own, bye-bye. One thing that Ruike does say in their warranty claim, you are not to take this knife apart. And since you're not supposed to take this knife apart, I'll take it apart for you, and I'll show you what's on the inside. So here's the inside of the knife. One thing you can clearly see, they've done some work to lower the weight of this knife, milling out the handle scales a little bit. Really good for them. Here you can see their Beta Plus lock, and it'll slide back and forth right there. That little steel arm you see in here, that's the spring that kind of holds it in place and gives it some of that retention, and you slide it back and forth. And here you can see those bearings. That's a 10-ball bearing system in a plastic housing, and it works really, really well. And as you can see right here, that's that internal stop pin, and that stops the knife from deploying further than it should. Internal stop pin rides in here, and it uses both ends of this little trench for it to stop all the way closed or all the way open, and it works just fine. So let's put it back together again. So what's the long and the short of this knife? This knife, in my opinion, is a definite recommend. I've got no problems with it. It's not perfect, but it is very, very good indeed. I like it more than most knives when they're brand new. The fit and the finish is very good. And the negative that I have about it is, probably my own fault. It's just I've learned to grip too tight in this manner, and that's why I don't always flip it. You can't blame the knife for that. Or you might be able to give a little bit to the designer and say, make it so that the knife's a little bit bigger this way, but then it's a different design knife, and it's not the same knife, right? So that's not too bad. And the only other thing, again, is the manufacturing. I would have liked if the screws that are in the pocket clip here would have been these flush kind of screws like we have everywhere else. That would have been a really nice touch. So there we have it. The Ruike P108-SF, also just known as the P108, recommended knife. I like it. I enjoy it. I've been having a good time with it, and I'm keeping this puppy. It's a really nice knife, and it won't be going on sale when I do knife sales or anything. It's just too nice, and that tells you something altogether in itself about the quality of this knife. So thank you so much for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for clicking that bell so that you'll be notified of every video, and YouTube can't unsubscribe you that way. And I thank you so much for sharing the video with people, letting them know about this channel. The channel's still young and growing, and I need more subscribers so that I can continue to get more and more vendors to say, hey, let's give this guy a shot. And I appreciate that very much. And if you want to purchase this knife and you're not in Canada, go ahead and please use Amazon.com, because I'll get a little bit of a referral, and thank you for supporting Canadian Cutting Edge that way. I want you to remember, folks, always cut towards your chum, not your thumb.